Carlos Baleba to Manchester United. I've always said, despite Baleba's drop in form, don't rule the move out. Despite the fact that Amran has left and Amran was the one pushing for Baleba and he was Amran's number one, despite his drop in form, do not rule Baleba out. Because Elliot Anderson, I think he prefers City. Tonali, very difficult deal to do. United are not put off by Baleba's poor form. We saw him at AFCON. Now, I am a little bit put off by Baleba's poor form, but I'm put off more because of the price tag. Brighton asking for 80, 100 million. Absolutely not. There's now talk of Brighton accepting maybe 60 million and Brighton willing to lower the fee. I'm a little bit less put off. I think if the fee gets lowered, Carlos Baleba is a deal that, I'm somewhat open to. We've had reports of the fee being lowered, but we've got also credible reports from Sully, who's, well connected inside Man United, saying, we're still looking at Baleba and, personal terms aren't an issue. The player still wants to move. Like, this deal could be done depending on the next manager. If the next manager wants him, I think this is the deal we can easily do. The player wants to move, Brighton willing to lower the price. We have interest, but it may depend on the next manager. Camavinga price agreed at around 40 million euros, which is 34 million pounds. I've always been put off by his injury record, but if you could get a player with his ability in the 30 million pound range, then maybe not. Nathaniel Brown, one of the best left backs in Europe, probably the closest thing to Nuno Mendes, has been linked to Manchester United. And I tell you what, I'd absolutely take him. More updates on Hojlund's exit, more updates on Elliot Anderson, and the latest on the manager news. More Enrique links to Manchester United. What are our chances of getting Luis Enrique? Has it improved with the manager wanting a move to the Premier League? So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and roundup show. Well, I'm going to round up all the latest Manchester United news in 10 minutes. I'm filming this at halftime in the Champions League games, and as it stands, Tottenham and Liverpool are one ahead. Newcastle got absolutely battered, and Newcastle were really good in the first leg and the first half of the second leg, and then they got battered in the second half. But the Champions League is such a good watch, and I really hope we're back in it next season. But yes, let's get into all the latest news, as this is your 10-minute Manchester United news roundup show. Subscribe if you enjoy. Let's dive into it. So this is from Sully, and Sully is pretty credible. Manchester United held talks with Baleba's representatives as early as last month. With personal terms unlikely to be an issue, he's open to the move. A final decision will depend on the club's manager situation at the end. I think the Baleba deal is pretty much ready to go. I'm going to be honest. Brighton are willing to lower the fee. Brighton want him gone because he's not playing well for them. He wants to move. He wants Man United. Personal terms not an issue. The problem is his form. We might bring in a new manager, and that new manager says, I don't want to risk it. We don't bring him. I think if we bring in a new manager that's really keen on Baleba, I think the deal is done. If Brighton actually lower the fee like what's being reported, the problem is the source reporting that Brighton are willing to lower the fee to like 60 million was like team talk. It's not exactly a Romano or an Ornstein. But I think if Baleba's fee gets lowered to 60 million, Anderson goes to City, we can't get Tonali. I think it's realistic. I think we will prioritise Anderson and Tonali over Baleba, and rightly so, because they're better players, even though Tonali hasn't been at his best this season and did pick up an injury, so hopefully he's okay. But I think Baleba is the one that we've almost had in the bag. Even though he's dropped off this season, even though I'm nowhere near as keen, I always feel like he's the one we've almost had in the bag. And, Man United, I think if the next manager wants him, I think that's a done deal. The question is, would you still want Baleba? With his drop in form, would you guys want Baleba? Or are you like me? If it's 60 million or less, you take the risk. But if he's going to be 70, 80, 90 million, you go no. Also, if you can get Elliot Anderson, I'm not bothered. If you can get Tonali, I'm not bothered. But if you can't get Anderson, we can't get Tonali, I look at Baleba, because Baleba's not the only player that's a risk. There's another player that I think would be phenomenal. I think he's an unbelievable player, but he's a risk for another reason, and that is injuries. Manchester United and Liverpool are on high alert for Eduardo Camavinga this summer. Intermediaries have informed clubs that Real Madrid midfielder could be available for around 40 million euros. So somebody's gone to these clubs and said Camavinga could be available for 34 million pounds. Now, do I think Real Madrid will sell him that cheap? No, but the reports saying that Real Madrid are willing to sell him that cheap. And if the price has been agreed at 34 million pounds, his injury record all of a sudden, is still an issue. But I go, you could take a risk on that. I remember we signed Mazraoui and De Ligt when they had big injury records. And actually, the first season of Mazraoui and De Ligt, they weren't injured too much. We're seeing it more this season. So it depends really. But then when you look at 34 million pounds, you go, as a third midfield option, I'd consider it. The thing with Camavinga is I wouldn't sign him to be my Casemiro replacement because he physically cannot stay fit. But let's say you do pull off Elliot Anderson for 80 million or something. And then you can bring in Camavinga for 34 million, João Gomes for 34 million. You do look at that and go, well, for depth, it's a good option to have. But then some people might say, yeah, but it's like saying Mason Mount is good depth. If he's not available, is it good depth? But I do think Camavinga for 34 million, I would probably take a risk on his injury record if it's a third midfield signing, like only if it's a third midfield signing. So there's two risks there. You know, Baleba and Camavinga are two players that I know on their day are phenomenal. But it's Baleba getting back to his day and Camavinga staying fit, because they're two players that I think would be perfect next to Maino. They're at their very best and fully fit, suit Man United. But there's always that element of risk. So do let me know down below. But look, the dream for me is one of Tonali or Anderson. That's the dream for me. Second midfielder to replace a guy. I think João Gomes is perfect. Third midfielder for depth. I think Matheus Fernandes is perfect. We also need a left back. And look, Nuno Mendes would be the ideal left back. He's phenomenal, Nuno Mendes. However, Nathaniel Brown is the closest thing to Nuno Mendes. The best left back out there for me is Lewis Hall. We ain't getting Lewis Hall. I thought he was actually really good in that first half versus Barcelona and in the first leg. We're not getting Lewis Hall. There's no way we're getting him. Would love Lewis Hall. Nuno Mendes, would love him. We tried for him. We couldn't get him. Amarin couldn't get him. He's an ex-Amarin player. Then you look at, okay, well, who are the next best options? And for me, if you want to go Prem proven, physical, someone to put crosses into Sesko, you look at Juve. If you want a more Nuno Mendes type player, you look at Nathaniel Brown. The problem is, do Man United want to spend £52 million on a left back? The way I look at it, Matheus Fernandes, if West Ham stay up, is going to be around £55 million. João Gomes is £35 million, which instantly takes 90 million on two backup midfielders. The main midfielder is going to be around 80 million pounds. So you're looking at about 170 million on midfield. You're looking at 60 million on the left winger like Njai, that's 230 million. You're looking at maybe 20 million on another centre back for depth, which takes you to 250 million. Then I don't think we've got much more than 25 million to spend on the left back, because I think we could go up to 275 million because of the money coming in from Hojlund, Rashford, Xerxes, Agate, Casemiro's wages saved, Champions League football, probably takes you round to a net spend of 150 million. I don't know if we have the money to spend 52 million on Nathaniel Brown, but look, if Man United can get Nathaniel Brown, I'm going to be very happy. If we don't get him, am I going to cry? No, we've got Harry Amas, we've got Diego Leon, worst case scenario, but I would like a fullback. I want three midfielders and a left winger. That is the four priorities, left winger, three midfielders. But after that, I think we need an attacking minded fullback and another centre back for depth. You could argue another backup striker for depth because Xerxes looking for a move away, and you can't blame Xerxes with his lack of minutes. Depending on who the new manager is, Xerxes could stay. If a new manager says to Xerxes, you're my kind of player, I'd like you to stay for depth. We're in Europe this season, he may stay, but for his career, you can understand where Xerxes might want to go. Now, talking of striker exits, Rasmus Hojlund is expected to leave. More confirmation of that. This has come from Nathan Sott of Mail Sports saying Napoli expected to trigger a 38 million obligation if they get UCL football. Currently 6 points clear with 9 games left, puts them in a strong position. So look, Napoli, if they get UCL football, they have to trigger the 38 million obligation. But the sporting director of Napoli has also said if they don't get Champions League football, they're going to get Hojlund. Hojlund's, had a decent impact in Napoli. He's not been amazing, but he's not been awful. He's got a fair few goals, and I think with a young player and the potential, Napoli are happy with him. There's an expectation that Hojlund to Napoli is done. The director said it will happen, even if they don't get Champions League football. Ben Jacobs said on TalkSport today that despite, links to Tonali and Baleba and everything, as far as he's aware, Anderson is our top midfield target. Every reliable journalist has said Elliot Anderson is the top midfield target. United are not giving up. Him to City is not done. While there's a feeling he prefers City a little bit like Semenyo, United will go for it. Talks are very early, and Elliot Anderson has not made his preference clear. Of course, Elliot Anderson hasn't made his preference clear. He's not going to make his preference clear until he gets the green light from City saying we'll get the deal done. He's not going to say no to Man United, I want City, 4 months before City are actually able to buy him. Because then if City don't buy him, Man United might go, oh, well, we don't want you now. We probably wouldn't because he's Elliot Anderson and he's really good, but you know what I mean. Now, apparently the reason Elliot Anderson hasn't made his preference clear, according to Ben Jacobs, is he's solely focused on Forest survival, and relegation also could affect price, so nothing's going to be done until we know Forest stay up. The one thing that's unclear is if Elliot Anderson will make a decision on his future before or after the World Cup. We know he's going to go to the World Cup. We know Tuchel likes him. That is really interesting. And then one last thing I wanted to talk about was from Nathan Salt, who said there's no decision being made yet on the manager front. As we're aware, we've been told many times United aren't going to make a decision until at least the end of April, probably early May. But Carrick is still the front runner. They do really like Enrique, but they don't know if he'd leave PSG. And De Zerbi is a serious contender, says Nathan Salt. They said they need someone that fits the Ineos model, the head coach role, who doesn't want full control. And that's where deals like someone like Unai Emery would be difficult. You know, we've also been linked to Glasner, but not seen as a priority coach. But Ineos wants someone that fits in their model. We also do like Nagelsmann because he fits in the model, but him being at the World Cup does put us off. Anyway, that is your 10-minute roundup. We'll be back live tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye.